Oh, that's different. You know, as with most shonen anime adaptations, the My Hero Academia anime is pretty loyal to the manga. And although it feels a little bit like finding a needle in a haystack, there are bound to be a few differences between the manga and the anime. And we found them. Today we're comparing the anime to the manga for seasons 1 through 3 of My Hero Academia. We've done this before, covering changes arc by arc, so if you're interested, check them out. Real quick, I know the show is called Anime versus Manga, and on the thumbnail we show the anime and then the manga, but when I'm comparing scenes in this video, I'm going to put the manga on the left and the anime on the right. It just looks better. Aesthetic. First things first. Let's cover some basic ground. Typically, there's 2 manga chapters to an anime episode. For particularly action-heavy episodes, that number often goes up to 3. Think about it. You need more manga panels to illustrate moves that end up being a second long when animated. Secondly, the manga features a lot of omake, or extra material. These can take the form of character cards, half chapters, and notes from the mangaka Kohei Horikoshi, who's often endearingly transparent about his thoughts. And for the record, those half chapters I mentioned are short comics that fall between the main chapters and are numbered with a 0.5 added to the chapter name. For a while, the anime's answer to this were their own versions of character info cards at the commercial break. The anime tries to slip in pertinent info from omake where it can, but usually it's just interesting little details that build up the world or provide a behind-the-scenes look at a character's design or backstory. For example, Mei Hatsume's omake reveals that only heroes are allowed to have support items, but civilians whose quirks hurt their quality of life are also eligible for support items if they get special approval from the government. Now, to go beyond. Season 1. When Deku starts quirkless, things were so carefree and arcs were short. Though it spans merely episodes 1 through 13 and chapters 1 through 21 in the manga, this season covers 4 arcs. The entrance exam arc, the quirk apprehension arc, the battle trial arc, and USJ arc. Notice how close the number of chapters and episodes are. This is the only season where one episode just covers 1 chapter of the manga. By the way, we broke down the differences between the manga and anime for the first 2 arcs in meticulous detail in other videos. We'll recap some major ones here, but in general, this video will be more sweeping. Actually, the first episode has more added scenes than any other in the season, largely because of Deku's extra monologues and flashbacks at the end of the episode. In general, and this trend runs throughout the series, the anime gives its B characters more time to shine. Take, for example, the very first pro-hero fight with the Purse Snatcher. The anime gives us actual face time with Death Arms and Backdraft and more action for Kamui Woods. Another trend throughout the anime is that the order of scenes are sometimes shifted for easier comprehension. It's harder to quickly jump around scenes on TV, after all. Take Izuku grabbing onto All Might's leg and the ensuing rooftop chat. The anime lets that whole interaction play out while the manga inserts the muck monster finding Bakugo. Also, the anime makes him a creepy jerk in that scene, but the manga slips Bakugo a no smoking line instead. Bakugo? Nice one. It's worth noting that in a few places, All Might's a little harsher with Midoriya in the manga, but other than that, the differences are just added seasoning. More about the pros failing to contain the muck monster, Uraraka's leg cut under debris, you get the idea. The bigger difference is in the entrance exam, when the anime allows Deku a fleeting moment of confidence as he fell to his seeming death after punching the gimmick. Or maybe when during Deku's acceptance video, All Might specifically blames paperwork for his distance in the anime, instead of cryptically saying, "There's been much to deliberate on." Big stuff, I know! Once Deku's at UA, the anime clarifies that school starts in April, which would be more obvious for a Japanese audience than an American one. And Deku mentions that students got in via recommendation. In the manga, we don't find out about recommendations until another arc. Midoriya's first entry to his classroom is much more of an affair in the anime. You get the sense that his performance at the exam earned him an actual reputation, which you don't get in the manga. Why am I calling him Midoriya? Deku. From now on, it's Deku. Fascinatingly, in the manga, the quirk apprehension test is routine among all UA students. But in the anime, All Might says the toughness of the first day depends on the homeroom teacher, which probably means that Aizawa in particular puts his students through this hell. There's another reason why Aizawa's a bigger jerk in the anime. In the manga, Aizawa tells everyone that he was lying about expelling someone before he posts the results. But in the anime, he posts the results, lets Deku think he's actually expelled, and then says he was lying. That's a straight up dick move, Aizawa. You're still a hot dick though. Tie me up. Okay. Meanwhile, All Might's attitude while watching his successor throw, little ball, is more concerned in the anime. In the manga, he's simply rooting Deku on like an irresponsible bro. Also, the manga has a darker consequence for when Aoyama overuses his quirk. In the anime, it's a tummy ache. Bummer, but you know, not bad. In the manga, his stomach explodes. Speaking of exploding, Katsuki Bakugo, the Deku versus Kachan fight, is the highlight of a day of training exercises. It's pretty small, but when Deku uses the fight to snag the win for his team, the anime shows a brief shot of Bakugo's surprise. We see his reaction to his defeat again while he's listening to Deku's explanation of his actions. The manga doesn't spend much time on Bakugo's emotions, but the anime, on the other hand, shows that his emotional whiplash carries over into the next episode. And like, for most of the season, if not life. There's also at least one instance in the fight of a great My Hero Academia fallback, killing a few seconds with some extra Deku strategy monologue, or whatever that mumbling is sometimes. Also, in the anime, Bakugo has his freaking out inner concession speech after Deku's rolled away on the stretcher. In the manga, he's rolled away after Bakugo's freak out. Might seem minor, but think about Bakugo's inner monologue. It's easy to imagine those particular thoughts being triggered by the gurney, but in the manga, Bakugo's mind just goes there on its own. Or maybe I'm reading too much into it. It's obvious that the anime always tries to cover the students of 1A as equally as possible. This becomes even more obvious as the series goes on. Thanks to this focus on the larger cast, a few fights that get just a panel or two in the manga are expanded in the anime, which I personally appreciate because that is a great cast. On the other hand, the manga gives more detail about All Might's presence in Yue's town. When All Might beats up that baddie on his way to work, the manga shows a little more of Mount Lady's and Kamui Wood's fight. And after All Might saves the day, Mount Lady worries he'll put them out of business, which is interesting. And then the USJ attack. The anime adds two fights to make sure all the students get some glory. Ojiro in the fire zone and Tokoyami and Koda in the squall zone. In a similar vein, the anime chooses not to strictly stay with the All Might Nomu fight until its completion. In the manga, once Deku ditches Froppy, it's not concerned with that crew. We get more anime action when the teachers finally swoop in too. Present Mike and Ectoplasm aren't shown attacking in the manga. And notably, to round out the season on a nice cliffhanger, the anime teases Stain way before he's mentioned in the manga. We don't get any Stain until the end-ish of the sports festival arc. Season 2 is when things start heating up. It covers the UA Sports Festival arc, the Versus Hero Killer arc, and the Final Exams arc. In other words, episodes 14 through 38 and chapters 21 through 70. Notice that the ratio of chapter to episode goes up a bit. The very first scene in the first episode of Season 2, the newscast and Gran Torino receiving All Might's letter, was added for the anime, which means we're thinking about the fact that All Might himself had a teacher far before we do in the manga. The manga introduces us to Gran Torino in the same place we're properly introduced to him in the anime, at the beginning of the internship arc. Other than that, there's an incredibly boring stretch where the differences aren't big enough to mention, even as the sports festival begins. Unless you really care about what side rice cookers are on. We finally get some divergences around our favorite 1B student, Kendo, and our least favorite 1B student, Monoma. Okay, to be fair, Monoma's probably a nice dude if he works on his aggression a little bit. But the anime goes even more out of its way than the manga to make Monoma a jerk and show that Kendo's the one to put him in his place. We heart Kendo. In the manga, Monoma makes much better use of his copycat quirk to snatch Bakugo's headband, as in any use at all. In the anime, he just kind of grabs it, which honestly is insanely unflattering to Team Bakugo. Plus, Monoma's taunting is much longer and more personal in the anime. He just jerkily gloats in the manga. But this leads anime Bakugo to become even angrier. And actually, Monoma's counterattack during Bakugo's attempt to reclaim his headband is just Monoma's quirked attack to grab the headband that we just talked about from the manga. The anime also extends out the scavenger hunt beyond the single panel. Why? So Monoma gets more time to say sassy things about 1A. But we get the subsequent satisfaction of Kendo out-sassing him. In this same vein, a few episodes later, the anime also adds Monoma gloating during the one-on-one matches and receiving a very well-deserved blow to the head from Kendo. And about those one-on-one battles, as you'd expect, the anime expands many of these fights a lot. For instance, the anime adds the nice little detail that Todoroki's epic ice blast against Zero is so powerful that it's even felt in Recovery Girl's stadium office. But several battles are more dramatically expanded compared to the manga. Kaminari versus Shiozaki gives more dialogue to Shiozaki, which gives her the chance to expand on her principles. She doesn't like it when Present Mike calls her an assassin. She's in UA, so she can save people, not kill them. And we get to see her sweet defense wall in action. While the manga merely says that Ida and Mei's match dragged on for 10 minutes, the anime shows us way more of Mei's antics. Our lovely alien queen versus Aoyama is only 4 interrupted panels in the manga. Never even the focal point because the manga's more focused on HeroAca in the waiting room, which also means no glance at Aoyama's undies. Too bad. I don't want to get in trouble for that. Yaoyorozu versus Tokoyami is only one panel. Eijiro versus Tetsu also gets expanded, though not as dramatically. The anime makes Todoroki and Deku's battle even more bombastic in some respects. For example, the size of Cemento's barriers is kinda up for interpretation in the manga, and I didn't think they looked that tall. And that explosion in the anime, whoa. Definitely doesn't send Midnight flying in the manga. After that, more added battle nuggets. The outcomes of both Ida versus Shiozaki and Tokoyami versus Mina are merely mentioned in the manga. And here's a heartbreaking one. In the manga, Ida tells Deku that he was able to talk to his brother, Ingenium, on the phone. In the anime, Ida calls Ingenium and it goes straight to voicemail. And we then get an expanded scene of Ingenium fighting Stain, and as we soon learn beyond doubt, losing. On that note, let's move on to the versus hero killer arc. But first, let us mention that the flashback to present Mike giving Aizawa his hero name while they're UA students was an adorable addition for the anime. The anime also makes it abundantly clear that Deku not only knows about the attack on Ingenium, he knows where Ida's going for his internship and why, and still chickens out in confronting him. You can infer that in the manga, but it doesn't spell it out. As expected, the anime offers up more information about the students' internships. Even Kendo gets an extra line to gripe about her internship's focus on modeling. And we find out that Uwabami just chose them because they're cute. The manga doesn't even mention that Jiro's training with Death Arms, and it never gives you an actual look at Mineta's, Froppy's, and Todoroki's internships. We only see our boy Todoroki during the Stain fight, which also means we don't see Endeavor's godfather-like office. Also, Best Jeanist shows off his quirk in the anime to restrain Bakugo. And in the manga, we don't see his quirk until way later, in the fight against All for One. Detective Tsukauchi's disturbing revelations about Nomu's origins actually come earlier in the manga. It begins the chapter when Gran Torino challenges Deku for the first time. In the anime, it comes a couple of days later. And after some added scenes of 1A internship happenings, the anime won't wait until after the Stain fight for Bakugo's slick hairstyle. The fight against Stain is actually remarkably close to the manga. We do get an extra scene where Endeavor reaches the other heroes and fights some extra Nomu, which is interesting. It's almost like the anime is trying to make Endeavor seem actually heroic. And maybe even somewhat likable in a professional regard, I guess. After the fight, we get slightly expanded scenes detailing what everyone else is up to, as usual, which brings us to the episode Everyone's Internship. A huge landmark for the series. Because although we know the anime usually adds or expands scenes starring the other students, this is the first episode that's entirely anime original. A less charitable word one could use is perhaps filler, but we don't do that here. In the manga, we only really get scraps of this information through the students telling each other about their internships when they get back to school. Not even these hospital scenes are in the manga. It seems natural to take an episode to see what everyone else is up to. And to give Froppy the starring role I always wanted her to have. Because best girl. Then it's to the final exams. After significantly embellished scenes of studying and thinking about studying and too much real-lifeness, including panels that were added as an afterthought to the manga, somehow the manga forgot to mention Bakugo was smart and show exactly how big the Yaoyorozu complex is. But here's maybe the biggest difference in the whole series so far. And it's really not much of a doozy, comparatively. Remember when we said it's trickier for television to switch between events happening at the same time? By that logic, the anime changes the format of the final exam. They go one after the other. In the manga, they all happen simultaneously. The manga actually jumps around these fights with shockingly breakneck speed, especially at first. But once we get to the Bakugo-Deku fight, we stay there for over a chapter. There are tons of ripple effects of the anime's decision to change the test structure. Obviously, the order of the chapters represented in these episodes gets totally jumbled up. And since there's really no need to fill in time before any of these battles now, the anime cheats us of a particularly awkward bus ride with All Might, Deku, and Bakugo. Also, you definitely can't watch other people's exams if yours takes place at the same time, so there's no audience of students in the manga. Instead, after Deku's finished, he specifically asks Recovery Girl if he can watch the other exams with her, which also means that HeroAca is spared extreme embarrassment after her conversation with Aoyama, for now. Since Kirishima and Sato go first in the anime, they fail earlier. In the manga, the first team to win or lose is Yaoyorozu and Todoroki. And because I can just feel you asking, no, that fight in the anime is not a filler. The fight that is missing in the manga is Ida and Ojiro. We just see they win. Surprising, right? Moving on. Season 3 is When Darkness Descends. It covers chapters 70 through 124 and episodes 39 to 63, which means we get the Forest Training Camp arc, the Hideout Raid arc, the Provisional License arc, and the very beginning of the Shie Haisaikai arc. Those latter two, by the way, are the start of a new saga, the Rise of Villain Saga. What, I like villains. You may not be surprised to learn that the very first episode of the season, Game Over, is a filler episode. Basically, completely anime original. Did I say the word filler? What gave it away? The shameless recaps? The fact that everything that wasn't a recap had no bearing on the events in the following episodes whatsoever? Or was it Todoroki's abs? That's why I don't want to call it a filler. That one was for Mama. I don't want to go to jail. Okay, it probably wasn't Todoroki's abs, but they were nice to see. Okay, fine, where are the handcuffs? Just take me. If you want to be generous, Game Over, which involves a series of swimming competitions, is based off of chapter 49.5, The Summer of Hope. If the idea of a half chapter confuses you, 49.5 is simply one page where Kaminari and Mineta daydream about the girls of 1A in swimsuits. That's it. No abs, certainly. But let's talk about the actual start of Season 3. Just like the last season, Season 3 starts with an anime-exclusive scene. This time, a foreboding conversation with Shigaraki, Kurogiri, and Giran. The post-credit scene where we get even more time with the villains is also added. The anime left out a very minor detail from the manga though. A tiny little scene that must have fallen in the mid-chapter crack between Season 2 and 3. It's just Hitoshi Shinzo walking with Aizawa, ignoring Deku. But it's sort of foreshadowing, but not for anything that's come up in the anime yet. The anime instead gives poor HeroAca yet another opportunity to feel awkward around Deku because of that conversation with Aoyama. Come on, anime, give her a break! Or don't. Those awkwardy, crushy moments are kind of the best. As you might have predicted, once the Pussycats leave 1A to fight their way through the forest, the anime expands things so that everyone beats up the beasties in the forest. The manga just shows the big four boys leaping into action. Weirdly, the anime changed Koda's relation to Mandalay, one of the members of the Wild Wild Pussycats. In the manga, Mandalay is simply Koda's aunt, but the anime made it more complicated. Koda is Mandalay's cousin once removed. Huh? Okay. I don't really understand the scene. It's kind of counterintuitive to make them less closely related. The following episodes are remarkably faithful to the manga. One fun little nugget is that we get to see what all the students of 1A are doing to train their quirks. In the manga, the content of each student's specialized training is just a blurb in onomake. And the adaptation remains pretty one-to-one throughout the hideout raid insanity, so let's fast forward because it's only after the intense drama with All Might that some differences occur. The manga shows All For One going to prison right after All Might's incredibly dramatic "You're next" mini-speech. But the anime saves it for a post-credit scene a full episode later, after All Might goes around to persuade students' parents to let their children stay in UA dorms. There's much more to this scene in the manga too. We learn that All For One has been blind for 6 years and is able to sense his way through the world with his infrared quirk, and that the prison's sensors render that quirk useless. Even more significantly, we also learn that he's in the exact same prison as Stain. We see Stain restrained in a chair, which, you know, might become important probably. A less significant departure is that the anime also does away with the news report about the biannual hero billboard chart, JP, which is the manga's way of making it abundantly clear that All Might is still ranked the #1 hero, sorry Endeavor, and of letting us know what happened to Ragdoll and Best Jeanist after the Camino incident. Knowing the anime's tendency to give all the students of 1A their fair share of screen time, the anime skips these scenes and other little things, like Deku's Camino rebel group saying goodbye to each other at the train station. In the following episode, we don't get to see Deku moving out of his mother's apartment in the anime, which was kind of a nice melancholic moment. Though, the anime adds a few cute, tiny tidbits of the students acclimating to dorm life. It's pretty much just small stuff like that until we get into the hero's licensing exam, which has a ton of anime-only scenes. For example, Todoroki versus the ninjas? Anime only. We just see the aftermath of Todoroki kicking butt in the manga. And those ninjas are nowhere to be found in the wake of his victorious chaos. Also, that whole scene with Momo and company facing off against the IQ lady? Anime only. And it's another example of how the anime loves to round out the coverage of 1A. Even the IQ lady's school is original to the anime. Also, we don't see Kirishima actually turn into a ball of flesh goo in the manga. The exposition stages of that fight, where that actually happens, is only in the anime. The manga just cuts in on Kaminari complaining to Bakugo while creepy Flesh Bro is monologuing. It's also worth noting that Kami in the manga is straight up, unabashedly naked after she uses her quirk. Then we get the episode Save the World with Love, which is predictably, obviously, filler. Okay, fine, we use the word filler. I say predictably because Save the World with Love is called a special episode. And it's especially weird because it's thrown smack in the middle of the rescue portion of the license exam arc, a fact that Deku, in a weird pre-show hang with All Might, acknowledges. Despite its placement, it literally has nothing to do with that arc. The special episode is meant to be a prologue for the first ever My Hero Academia film, Two Heroes. Neither the episode or the film is based on material from the manga. But honestly, when we return to the story we actually care about, the anime also returns to its absurd faithfulness. Everything's a little compressed perhaps, but all that's missing is just small contextual differences. For example, in the manga, we see that Kaminari, Bakugo, and Kirishima saved the last victim in the rescue portion of the licensing test, and Bakugo expresses disappointment that he didn't crack some skulls. The biggest difference from here on out is that the anime shifts the placement of the twice story. In the manga, it's the chapter after everyone goes home from the licensing exam. In the anime, it takes place later, in the episode after Deku and Bakugo's fight, which by the way, that fight. As much as the anime loves to showcase its characters, I guess it also loves to show how each and every one of those characters can get their butt kicked by Mirio from the Big Three. Plus, the manga, rather cruelly, includes a timer on this whole fight, just to make sure you knew how quickly this guy bests most of our faves. Not even 6 seconds. After Bakugo loses his bananas over taking out the trash, and we get some extra face time with the League of Villains, we've officially wrapped up Season 3. Anime watchers, we can't wait for you to catch the next scene. Anyway, I am Crystal Marie, and you're watching GetintheRobot, your anime explainer. Hope you like the video. If you like it, and you're tempted to, maybe hit that like button, maybe hit that subscribe, maybe, yeah, okay, fine, you don't have to. It's just, it would be nice.